In this episode, we're going to talk about religionism.
Station wagons.
Soup.
Weird gods and
This
Is
Spaces.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Saddia.
I'm Peter.
And I'm Ian. Welcome to Spaces. And today we have not a very special guest. He is
Special
very,
to us.
yes,
Yes.
very special.
Thank you.
But he's the guy who's been behind the camera making this whole thing happen. Set us up the camera. He does the
You're
editing.
laughing so much.
It's not a special guest though.
I'm not special, you guys.
It's
I'm
Leo.
just regular.
It's Leo. Leo, can you
Thank you for that amazing introduction.
A man who needs no
Yes.
introduction.
can you help us get to know you, Leo?
Yeah.
Since I botched it.
Hi, my name is Leo. Like he said, I'm usually the guy behind the camera. I'm always the one filming. Lauren couldn't be here for this podcast, so I'm just filling in for her. And I'm
You're not
excited to. No, I get that a lot though. Like when I go, I've seen you before. Are you Lauren? Yeah. So I'm excited to come in and just discuss with you guys and.
Bro, I
Yeah,
didn't. We
share my ideas.
I keep cutting you off. I'm so
No,
sorry.
you're totally fine.
I wanted to ask you a question though.
Yeah.
Why did you? So like in the first podcast, we talked a lot about like our whys and stuff like that. So just
Yeah.
want to ask for like everyone watching, why do you want to be on the podcast today, or like why? What
Why
made
did
you
you
want
say
to?
yes,
Yes.
to us asking you?
Peer pressure. No, I'm kidding. I was forced. No.
Help me.
I actually during the first podcast, when you guys were talking, I kind of wanted to jump in myself. Like I was behind the camera and I was like, I feel like I have like little nuggets of wisdom that I can
Let's
just
go.
jump in there. But obviously I was behind the camera, so I couldn't say anything. So
A random voice.
yeah. So whenever I heard
The voice from above.
God, is that you? So whenever I knew Lauren couldn't be here today,
Not him.
I was like, this is my opportunity to come and share my ideas and really talk about things with you guys and like discuss.
And drop your nuggets of wisdom.
Drop
Yeah.
my nuggets of wisdom.
Oh my God. That's so good,
My
bro.
little nuggets. Nugs,
We
not
love
drugs.
having you here.
So thankful, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
So today we are gonna have a conversation, and for this one, it's really gonna be. I keep looking at the mic, but for this one, I'm talking to you. For this one, we are gonna have a conversation that is it's gonna go along with what Lauren has said before, that we're gonna get uncomfortable sometimes. So we're gonna dive into it together though, because that's what Spaces is all about. This is a safe space for that. So Saddia, we're gonna talk about this word that you may or may not have invented, religionism. Can you tell us the story behind that?
I just kind of, anyways, I just made up a word. I just was like, oh, this sounds good. It rolls off the tongue nicely. But I was actually talking to Lauren, and if you guys don't know, like, me and Lauren are really close friends. So we were doing something, and on the way, I'm pretty sure to, like, Starbucks or something, I was talking about how sick I was of people being, like, hypocritical Christians and preaching love and then showing people who may not have the same beliefs or the same opinions as them lower than what they are. And I was like, it's kind of like, it's racism, but with religion, so it's religionism. And then it just kind of went off with that. But Ian, you actually formed an actual definition of what we've talked about, because we have like production meetings and stuff. And you did very well in the definition of like forming it.
I'm honored.
And if you will actually let us know, or let our viewers and our watchers and our listeners know, like, what was the format of the definition?
Yeah, so this kind of came about through some conversations I was having, but and some content that I was digesting. But this is the definition of religionism that through these different sources kind of came together. Religionism, an attitude or belief held by an individual or a group of people that dehumanizes another individual or group of people on the basis of an actual or perceived difference, resulting in an inability to show love or compassion to this person or group. That's a lot of words, but just to kind of unpack it a little bit. So the first thing is that it's an attitude or belief. So it's something that we can have, as I was thinking about it, it's something that we can have without even realizing it. It's something that can be, that it can either be learned or developed. I think a lot of times it's learned by something that we've seen. The next part is that word dehumanizes. So in other words, it says, you are not even... And that's such a serious word, dehumanizing people, because we see throughout history what can happen whenever people are dehumanized. Because whenever we dehumanize someone, you can do anything to them. You can think anything about them. So in a way, it's this belief that this person, I dehumanize them because they disagree with me. And it results in an inability to show love or compassion. In that piece right there, this was kind of from Brene Brown has a book called Rising Strong. And in that book, she talks about how there has to be a level of this word common humanity. So in other words, we have to see each other as first, before we're any label, as being humans together. And whenever we don't, we cannot show love or compassion. So that's kind of the definition.
Yeah.
A little bit. Leo, since you're the new guy, I want to ask you what do you think about that definition, religionism? Where does that intersect with your life and your experience?
Definitely that whole aspect of dehumanizing someone, and the way I was listening to it is also kind of creating some sort of division as well between different things. You might not agree with someone else what they're saying, so that could create some sort of division between a relationship or just with two people in general. I kind of had a story to kind of go into that as well. In college, I took a world religions course. And in that world religions course, we learned about all kinds of religions. I think there were about 8. I can't remember all of them because I'm not the best student. But
at least you're honest.
But the two ones that I could remember are Hinduism and Judaism. And it was so interesting because we were talking about all of these religions that my parents growing up as an Adventist, they were stay away from those people. They were they don't believe the same things we believe in. I don't want you to be led astray. To just that was kind of in a way dehumanizing them, dehumanizing their beliefs, dehumanizing what their truth, what they believe in. And so I was learning a lot about all these different religions.
Sure.
And what I started realizing is that we actually have a lot more in common than I thought we did. Obviously they believe in other things like different gods and different universes and parallel universes and things like that. But at the basis of it all, we all have the same morals. We all come to this world for a purpose. And in each of these religions, they all had their own purpose, whether it was to bring people closer to their God, or whether it was to spread positivity while they're here on earth. They all believed in a certain purpose, and that's kind of that little bridge that I found between my religion and those religions. And being in that class, it felt very, very safe. It was a very safe space because there were people from all kinds of religions. There were Baptists. I don't think there were any Hindus or Judaism.
Jews.
Yeah.
Jewish people.
Sorry. But we were also open about our own religions, and we were all able to, the teacher was so chill. He was asking us things about what we think on certain things that they believe in, and we all kind of just started conversating about it, and we all kind of, there was no judgment, even though we all believed in different things, maybe on the Sabbath day even. There was no judgment, and we all were able to talk about it freely. We were all able to talk about it and not feel we were wrong or we were right. And I feel like kind of creating those safe spaces would kind of help aid this whole religionism concept or this whole religionism mindset.
Yeah, what I'm hearing you say is that in that class there were a couple things. One is that you saw that we're all humans. So even people coming from different backgrounds, you did find things. Again, you didn't find that it was the same, but you found that there were some similarities on different issues. And then you found that it was something that was healthy and helpful for your learning and growth, to have a space where you could talk about that without having to combat each other or having to argue or debate. Peter, do you have anything to add to that, or I don't know if that brings up anything in your mind?
Well, it's good to... Leo was mentioning about the religions of the world, right? Hinduism, Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, Christianity, so on.
He's a good student.
Wow, Peter, you just had to show me up. Okay.
I might be
wrong.
wrong.
Were you in that class?
I might be wrong.
Just in the back, like.
Were you the teacher?
Were you the teacher of that? Or were you in disguise?
But, so there's these big headings, right? And then there is denominations. And sometimes we identify denominations as religion, right? And they are religion, but, when we talk about religions of the world, when we talk about religions of the world, we're talking about, the broader spectrum. There's a difference there, and but what's in common is that each one is guilty in a sense of dehumanizing. So denominations have dehumanized, religions have dehumanized, and even churches have dehumanized. Even circles of people who believe in the same thing have dehumanized. Even individuals who believe have dehumanized. And I always go back to the one connection, and that is a distorted view of God is a distorted type of religion. A distorted type of religion brings a distorted type of spirituality.
A distorted view of God is a distorted view of religion.
It produces a distorted view of religion. So
Tell me more.
if my view of God is distorted, which all of us are being detoxed, let me put it that way. All of us are being detoxed. When we get into the Word of God and we start learning who God is, we are being detoxed because all of us have a distortion of God. And so if we have a distorted view of God, then we have a distorted view of religion and the practice of religion and the practice of spirituality. And so a simple distortion. My mom one time told me, God helps those who help themselves.
Ben Franklin, baby. That's in the Bible. No, I'm just kidding. Not in the Bible.
And so I asked her, so where in the Bible is that, Mom? And she was like, oh, well, it's somewhere, but she couldn't find it. It's nowhere in the Bible, and that creates a distortion, which means that if I'm helping myself, which means that applies not only in the ordinary things of life, but applies in my salvation, in my redemption. These are big words, by the way, and so. You have this distorted view, you practice a distorted view of a religion or a spirituality.
So you're saying that there's a deeper level where it's not just about, so we've talked about religionism, this belief that can be there, and then religion, but then you're saying that behind the religionism or behind any distortion of religion is a distortion of who God is.
Sure. And religionism is one of those. For our purposes and the word that Saddia has created, religionism is basically behind the scenes a distortion of who God is, and therefore it's a practice that is distorted.
What does religionism say about God? If you practice religion, in other words, going back to that sense of, hey, I have all the truth, or hey, I'm all right, I have nothing I can learn from another person, or if you do that, or if we throw that word again, dehumanize, or not recognize common humanity, what does that say about the God that you worship, or that you say you worship? If you are someone that actively is in that mindset, there's
so many ways to approach that question, and I'm gonna throw some fast ones.
Okay.
If you're dehumanizing, you see, remember our last podcast we spoke about humility and humanity departing from the same place, which is dust, right? So
we all come from dust.
We all come from dust, and so the ritual was to recognize that God is our creator. If I dehumanize you, what I'm saying, if I deny you your humanity, I'm denying him his creation, him being the creator. Let me put it that way.
Wow.
If I deny you humanity, if I deny you your values, if I deny what you are, then God, it doesn't make sense to me. So, but if I claim still that I'm part of a religion,
yeah,
then I am creating my own God. And so I go to Jeremiah. I think it's Jeremiah, Isaiah. I think both of them speak about how God is talking through the prophet and says, somebody takes a piece of wood and they chop it off and they use some to burn, some to cook, and then they have this little piece and they shape it, and all of a sudden it becomes a God. You see, I have the ability to create my own God.
Wow.
So a person can be very passionate about their religion while dehumanizing someone else. You see, and that's why the Bible needs to be a point of departure, because the Bible is what holds us accountable and gives us clarity of who God truly is.
Wow, you just said a lot.
That's the whole podcast, guys.
The end.
That's it.
Wow. That's a really, I've never thought about it that way. That's just...
So it's not crazy. that we go and we think it's, I would never create my own God. It's not like I'm making some little statue. At least so a lot of the Western world doesn't do that. But whenever I practice religionism, or putting myself here, then devaluing another person, I'm creating my own God. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Because I'm distorting God's character, who God is.
Yeah, and it's because,
as revealed in Scripture.
Yes, and it departs from a distortion.
Wow.
A distorted view of God, And I'll give you a simple story, very fast. Basically, there was this one church where this person, made a mistake, and the father happened to be a leader, one of the biggest leaders in the church, and decided to take that person's name and disfellowship them, and a week later then bring them back into the church through baptism. And the reason why is because it was related to that person. And so what happens here is if I can control the values and the principles, if religion has to happen my way and the way I view and I see it, that's a red flag. That's a very big red flag, that you have a distorted view of God and you're practicing a distorted practice of religion.
Because that person who
said that right.
That person who disfellowshipped, or in other words, kicked out that person that brought him back in, is saying, hey, if I operate this way and I represent religion, then God is also someone that just kicks you out, but he can bring you back in. So in other words, he's kind of like a little bipolar. And he's saying something about who God is through his actions.
Yeah. And that's the thing. So the people who have problems with God and have problems with religion, and in this case, let's call us Christianity.
Sure.
A lot of them have those problems because of the practice of other people who called themselves Christians, who practice distorted ways of Christianism. And so they were rejected, they were persecuted, they were branded, they were outcasted in a certain way. If you look at one of our surveys of the broader church, they found out that the number one of the highest reasons why people leave the church is because of relationships. It was not even doctrinal. It was because of relationships. So, but here's the thing: when you tell me that you're a Christian, you believe in God, for a person who's coming into Christianity, you are.
Wow.
You see, you are.
You're the representation.
You're the representation. You see, And so how you treat me is how I'm going to start viewing God.
Wow.
And that's what people don't get. It's so this dehumanizing issue of what religionism does is a big deal, and God doesn't like it. I can tell you that.
Saddia, I know.
That's so good. I can't follow that.
Well, I know you had mentioned about the importance of at some point bringing up this thing of character of God, or like how we see God, how we view God. Do you have any comments on that, or maybe in your own experience? Or
I mean, so we do a Bible study, and you touched base on it because you led the Bible study, and you were talking about how other people view, or first of all, how they perceive God and how God makes them feel whenever you hear God. And for me, it's been a very long process of getting to know who God is, because I have grown up where I've encountered men and that have never been positive in my life. So why am I going to follow a man or follow this picture of a man who has done no wrong? Because every single man in my life has done wrong, and I've never had a positive outlook on who a man should be in my life, because of the way that I grew up, the things that have happened to me, and so it's been a very, very long process of me getting to know who Jesus is, and luckily I've had some very positive people in my life, because for me, going from a no religion thing and then coming in, it definitely was the people who brought me to it, because of the people who were in my life and who were a positive outlook, and that's who I started to perceive Jesus as. So going through that, obviously, if I'm going to be like, oh, if you guys are so happy and you guys are acting like that, obviously that's Jesus to you. And I wanna get to know who that is. And at first I was very angry. I was like, why did you let these things happen? Why? It was always why? Why did these things happen to me? It was never a positive outlook on, oh, I'm still alive. You're still working on me. I'm broken, and yet you've saved me. And so back 360 back to the Bible study. I was listening to all of the people who grew up in the church, and they had a distorted picture of who God was. They became very, very confused. The feelings that they had when they heard, oh, the name God or Jesus, they felt very confused, and they felt hurt and judged and blamed. And that was a very different feeling that I got when that I have now of Jesus. And so for me, I think religionism definitely has played a part in their growing up, their teachings, because of the people who taught them had a distorted sense of who God was. And so for that, I don't even remember what your question was. I just felt like maybe anything said.
Can I piggyback on?
Yeah, absolutely.
I remember one time there was this leader of a church when I was a kid. I was actually a teenager at that time, and I remember that he stood up and he said that whoever of his youth, referring to female, whoever of the youth who wear pants, they will be disfellowshipped. And
in other words, kicked out.
Kicked out of church. Yeah, that's a big. Well, yeah. Kicked out. That's an insider word. I never thought about that. That's true. That's an insider word. And so I never forgot that. I never forgot that, because the question that in my head came was, why are we kicking people out of church because they wear pants? And they happen to be female. What's the deal here? Why does because if I can get into heaven just by not wearing pants,
I wouldn't wear pants all the time.
What it's
what kind of God is that?
That's kind of a special deal.
A God that wears pants.
Yeah. And so you see the here's the thing: people who that created in me. What I'm trying to say is that created in me a distortion of who God is.
Hmm.
So I started thinking about, okay, so God does not like pants on female people. And then I started creating the list, right, and the assumptions. And I started to believe those assumptions and act on them. You see what I'm saying?
Wow.
And so there is, to what you were saying, Saddia, there is a responsibility that comes with us as a church. We have a responsibility as a church to clarify, to really bring up the image of who God, what the Bible presents as who God is.
Yeah.
It's so relevant, so important, especially in a day and age like now. Especially in a postmodern world.
Yeah.
Presenting this God who says, you don't have to do stuff for me because I've already done stuff for you.
Yeah.
All I need you is to rest in me. You see,
So now more than ever in a time of such confusion,
exactly,
it's important for us to actually talk about who is God really. Now, Leo, is any of this like resonate with your experience or do you have any comments for that?
Like Peter, I grew up like coming from a Hispanic conservative background. Like I heard, and not only just the pastors, like moms and dads, like parents would talk about these kids and be like, "Oh, no te juntes con esa niña porque tiene pantalones y tiene esa playera."
Don't hang out with that girl because she's wearing pants.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Basically, they would say, "Don't hang out with her. She's wearing pants." And so I kind of grew up thinking like, "Whoa, she's a rebel. Like, I shouldn't be hanging out with people like that." It was so bad. I got to the point where I thought wearing your shirt untucked was bad. I always had my shirt tucked in. I was always like walking around like SpongeBob, with my shirt tucked in like all the time. Because I thought that that's what you had to be like in order to even be presentable to God. Yeah. And it sucks because I have two sisters. And I see the double standards that they go through. I see you have to wear a dress. I see you can't wear too much makeup. Like just these little things that people associate these things with your salvation. And it's like, just because she has like, a full face, that doesn't mean she's not going to go to heaven. Like it doesn't make any sense to me. And so I also grew up with that, like as a kid, and it painted a really distorted picture of God for me. So I felt like he was sorry.
No, I'm just saying. So what we're seeing in different stories or different things we've experienced or other people have experienced is that there is this sense of religionism that has pervaded religion, and specifically our specific branch. Now, if we ended here, we could end here and be like, oh man, we'll leave you with that. But I think there is another conversation that we need to have. I think that what we've talked about, I think, is something that needs to be brought awareness and that we need to address, which is who is God, who really is God, and what, how has religionism played a part in twisting who he is. But there's another part, and Peter, I want to ask you this. What is the difference between religionism and religion? In other words, what is the purpose of religion? Because we've been talking a lot about, religionism and how it's in religion. But then if that's not the purpose, or is that what religion really is, or is there another aspect?
Well, to make, that's a very complicated question, and I wish we had an historian here who could really define it. But in a very simplistic way, religion is several things. It's a belief system. It's a way of life. It involves spirituality. It involves belief in God, or depending on the religion you are, different gods, et cetera, et cetera.
But to simplify, so that's like religion in a broad sense. But to simplify a little bit, with especially because being a part of Canyon Creek Project, being a part of, the Seventh-day Adventist Church, which is, right, a religion. What is
Denomination.
Denomination.
There you go.
Because Christianity is a religion. I'm a bad student too. But within that, in our context, in other words, what is the church supposed to be? What really is it? Is it just this religionism, or is there something else that the church should be?
No, the church is called. Look at the life of Jesus. What does Jesus do? I said that. I didn't say that with the purpose of that bracelet thing, because I'm not really into that thing. But
I remember when those were so big.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah.
The what would Jesus do?
Yeah.
Oh, I used to have one,
got it.
and I am second bracelet too.
Yeah. But Jesus comes into this world. I mean, Paul says that he who is God, he humbled himself in such a way. He comes into the world, becomes flesh and bones. Matthew identifies as Emmanuel, God with us, right? And what he does, he walks with us. He's present with those who are poor in spirit, those who are captive, those who are hurt, those who are, he has compassion, he loves, he cares. And notice that Jesus has harsh words for those who are in religionism. If you look at the Gospels, he has some harsh words for, in John we find, that, we are sons of Abraham. No, you're the sons of the devil. He has harsh words for those who are in this religionism kind of deal thing. But what does Jesus do? Does Jesus just have like a, hey, follow me and be happy, teddy bear type of religion? No, he doesn't. What he does is he invites you to enter into the life of what love really means. And we always think that love is this passive, warm, fuzzy feeling, but what love deconstructs us. Love breaks us up and then builds us again. Yeah. And so the church is to be what Jesus is. It's to enter into the dark places. It's to be the light. It's to love, to have the conversations, to embrace people. It's to sometimes do things that are difficult for other people to understand, like Jesus, he spit and he makes mud, and everybody's like, whoa, what's going on here? Kind of deal thing. So church is that instrument of God that invades in the darkness, that is embraced, that loves people, that cares for people. And this is where we get confused, because God will love you just as you are. But he loves you too much to leave you the way he found you. Because the way he found you is hurting you.
Wow. And
that's why he invites you to walk with him, and that's why transformation, and that's why he invites you to a higher accountability of life and things like that, so you can enjoy what life really is, and that's what the kingdom life is. And so we, as a church, we need to follow the steps of Jesus in that sense.
What attitude is that? So in other words, if religionism is one attitude and one way that has often been taken, what would you say is another way of viewing, and what is the other, if we were going to put like another attitude or another spirit or another way of relating to others? How should we approach that? And Leo, I know you mentioned this, or we mentioned, like, we were having a conversation a couple of days ago, like, in light of this like cultural moment, in light of all the anger and division and polarization, in light of, if we're being honest, the dehumanization that can happen, not even just in religion but in other parts of life. How should we as individuals, or how would Jesus like ask us to relate to other people in this time, whether on social media or in person or in any way?
I feel like Peter said it the best, is by showing love to other people, and by picking what Jesus would do in any situation, literally any situation you find yourself in, and always choosing that love perspective, and always choosing to show love, whatever that encompasses, you know, like in how you see the world, how you see people in need, how you see people who are reaching out, just to always have that mentality of showing love and choosing Team Jesus. Choosing Team Jesus.
Saddia, tell me more about that.
Well, you mentioned like choosing Team Jesus, and Peter definitely mentioned something earlier when we were kind of talking about things before. He mentioned something that really stuck with me, because in our notes we obviously say like, how would Jesus handle a cultural moment, but Peter specifically said Jesus can't be culturalized, that he ascends culture. And if you can touch a little like base on that a little bit, because that's really what Team Jesus is. Like, he's not one or the other, he is his own thing. So if you could touch base on that specific.
So Jesus transcends culture, and so should be the church, you know. And the reason why is there's a difference between following culture and contextualizing into the culture.
Okay.
So if I follow culture, you know, the church is not called to follow culture. We are creating a culture. It's the kingdom's culture. We are counterculture to the culture of this world, right?
Okay.
But in order to reach people with the Jesus message in a language that they can understand, we enter into the culture and we contextualize.
Okay.
You see, and so I was just joking with your mustache, you know. So
Earlier.
But you know, a good story for that is the Samaritan woman. You know, what does Jesus do?
Which we touched on our first podcast.
In our first pod, where he sits
watch
down
our first
with her.
podcast.
You know, check it out
on YouTube.
He sits down with her, and what he does, he does not follow the culture. He enters into the culture, utilizes the language of the culture that she understood, and then invites her into the kingdom's culture. You know, so Jesus always departs from what we know to what we don't know. And the church is called to do the same thing. We depart from what they know to what they don't know. You see, because if I sit down with, let's say, one of our friends who is an atheist, and I say, this is what the Bible says, and so on, he or she's gonna say, what is that book?
That's just a book.
Sure.
You know, what are you talking about? You know, sure. I don't know what you're talking about. Who's this Jesus? You know, and you know, so we have to depart from a place where what they know, you know, and then go to what they don't know, and that's how, you know, we have to be above culture in that sense, you know.
So what I'm hearing is that Jesus.
I didn't say that well, but
what I'm hearing you say is that
I got it.
we as a church cannot get so caught up in culture. In other words,
skinny jeans.
Oh my goodness. No,
that's all I can wear.
He doesn't mean that, because I wore that every single week when I was in undergrad. Anyways,
beside the point.
The point is that we don't get so caught up in culture that we become it. In other words, we don't get so, and I'm just gonna go here, okay? Yeah. We don't get so caught up in saying, okay, this is what's happening in our country. This is the attitude of people in our country, and we're just gonna go and copy that at church. We're just gonna pass that. We're just gonna retweet that. We're just gonna take that on. Yeah. We're gonna take on, because, you know, like, in other words, we don't take on the same values that the world takes on.
Yeah.
We take on different values because Jesus has his own team.
But when we do walk into the cry, you know, the cry of a people group or so on, we do it with purpose. See, when we enter into the culture, we do it with purpose. We don't do it just to fit in and to kind of, you know, water down the Jesus message. We enter with purpose, because notice, and let me give you let me follow up with a skinny jean comment, because
sure,
you see, you know, Timothy Keller, a respected minister over there in New York, he passed, he retired, and he was pastoring in New York, and so many people were coming to his church. I mean, people who believe and not believe, people from different walks of life. He had a lot of young people who would come, and if you would look at him dress, it was not something fancy. There was no skinny jeans. You see? Because people are not looking for just to follow someone because they are, the skinny
Gucci.
jeans. The skinny jeans are not a biblical message.
Sure.
I'm not criticizing skinny jeans. They're pretty awesome, but
I was like,
But
Peter
what
wears
I'm,
skinny jeans.
but what I'm saying is that we cannot follow into a culture just for the sake of it. No, we interrupt the culture to bring the culture of heaven. To bring the kingdom culture. And when people hear that content, it doesn't matter how the messenger looks. You see what I'm trying to say? I don't know if I'm saying this right. I should use other words, but
What I'm hearing, I don't know, maybe it's just, but what I keep hearing, or what I keep internalizing from what you're saying is, as a church and as a people, we meet others where they're at. And instead of doing that with just unintentionally, we do it with intention so that we can do what Jesus did and meet people where they're at so that we can use Jesus in order to make life better. And I feel like maybe that's a poor way of saying it, but
No,
changing.
that makes sense. Like you meet in there, but I have a question. I'm going to challenge you a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Oh no.
So, if I'm listening to this right now, this is big concepts, but what does that actually look like? Or what questions should we be asking ourselves, or what is the practical part of this?
Yeah.
Where it's not just what should this is, so we've been saying I think something good, which is that this is what the church is supposed to do, or the attitude it should have. But then how can we break that down, make it real, and put legs on it?
We have legs. we do it. It starts with the person.
I like that.
Yeah.
So I like the fact that you said, how can we put legs on it? Leo has legs. I mean, unless you don't have legs, and I'm so sorry, but then it doesn't. I mean, it still works, but you have legs. You can take this and make it yours. And I like how you put it here, because you say love is practice and risk. And you have a very well thought out thing of what love is, but very simply put is Team Jesus. We're gonna use that. Team Jesus is love. And I want you to read this.
Yeah.
Love is a verb.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. I was reading.
So Jesus is doing love.
Yes.
It's showing love.
I don't know if you've read Love Does by Bob Goff, but basically that's what he's talking about, is love isn't just that feeling. It isn't just me saying, oh, I'm going to go out and give people face masks. You can do that, but it's the intention behind that. And it's actually going out and doing it, like you said, with intention, not just doing it to look good or because it's trending or because it's what's in here. And the only person that can see that is God.
I think this is an important point, so I'm going to linger a bit with you guys here. I was a child, and Dad had
What?
What?
You were a child?
I was a child.
When?
And I was.
You lied to us.
You lied. I thought you were an adult this whole time.
Dad had this huge blue station wagon. It was one of these 1970s. I don't know what age, but it was huge. It was big, and I was sitting in the back row, looking through the window. We were passing by. We just had left church, and as I'm looking, I saw this homeless person who was pretty old and had soup in their hand. And he was excited because he was going to eat. And he was carrying it to a place where he wanted to sit down and eat, or maybe he was bringing it to someone else. But he was excited about it, and he was also, so excited. And suddenly he tripped, and the soup falls right there to the ground. And he is desperately trying to pick it up and put it. And I'm from my window, I'm watching, and I feel compassion in my heart. but I never stopped. I never told Dad to stop. I just watched it, and that was my compassion. My compassion was a window compassion, and I feel that religionism is like that. Religionism is having a compassion that only stays in words. It stays in four walls. It stays in sermons. It stays in beautiful sermons. It stays in beautiful intentions that stay within the church but never go outside to the community that needs it.
Yeah.
You see, what breaks religionism is, let's stop that station wagon. Let's go out and let's say, hey, let me get you a meal. I don't want to pick up this meal. This meal is over. Let me get you a new meal, and here is the meal. And who else does need a meal that you feel that is someone else in your family or friends need your meal? Let me get you a meal. You see, religionism always stays in just the words and we talk high and mighty and ideas and so on. And so we can live a religion, all by itself within the walls of the church, safe and secure, away from everybody else. But that's not what Jesus did. Jesus breaks into the darkness of this world. He puts on flesh and bones, and he walks among us, and he touches the leopard, and he forgives the woman who had slept with a lot of people, and he just loves on. He's present with them where they are in their greatest need. And that's what breaks religionism. Because when atheists or agnostics or they start seeing that the Christian people, that the church people are really living out the values that they so much speak about,
Sure.
I think it's going to be a different story.
Yeah.
But if you say it in a sign, but it doesn't reach the person, doesn't touch hearts, it's a different story.
That hits me.
Wow.
That hits me really deep, because whenever you say that, now it becomes personal. Now it becomes, because I have had countless moments that, like you're talking about, where it's not maybe just not a physical need, but maybe someone who needed just to talk, or maybe, I don't know, for me, I went to a university where there were a lot of people that didn't see things the same as me. And so often what I did is I had a mindset of, I need to protect myself, or I need to, try to, protect myself from those influences and stuff like that, when those were the very people that I should have been with. Those are the very people that I should have said, you know what, I don't agree with everything you're doing, but I'm going to do life with you anyway. And I'm going to have my, I'm going to have my own boundaries and stuff like that, and I'm my own person, but I'm going to find ways to love you. And that is something that is still in my heart to this day. That it's one of those things where I want to learn from, so that I can challenge myself to ask that question, like, okay, what does it look like now, or how can I do that now? And I think that's a perfect transition to.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna actually. So, we have action steps, but I really take to your story, and I want to encourage everybody to stop the station wagon. Stop the station wagon. Get out of the window of the windowed compassion. Step beyond yourself. Step beyond, and get out. Get out. And
Can I make a comment on that word, compassion?
Yes.
There's a quote I ran into. I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, you're okay.
There's a quote I ran into that I really want to share, because I don't think it's enough, even for us, but if you're watching, I don't think it's enough to just throw out love and compassion. I was hearing it, like, how we define words is important. And I ran into this definition of compassion by Pema Chodron. Compassion is not a relationship between the healer and the wounded. It's a relationship between equals. Only when we know our own darkness well can we be present with the darkness of others. Compassion becomes real when we recognize our shared humanity. And what I hear that quote saying is that compassion starts by recognizing that we are all people and that we all have those things that we don't want to be there. We all have those struggles. And it's not me coming at you like, oh, I have something that's going to help you or save you. No, it's me saying, oh, we're the same. And, you know, if I were in that situation, I would want someone to act like that towards me. You know, it's like where I could be in your shoes. It's empathy. That's what I heard. Empathy is the first tool of compassion. In other words, putting ourselves in other people's shoes and actually saying, like, I've been there or I could be there.
Yeah.
Is the first step of compassion.
Yeah. So I want to rephrase my action step to encourage you guys to first step out of comfort, step out of the station wagon. It doesn't have to be as like down to the point of like, oh, go buy a homeless person a meal, but a meal, I hear you saying, is something that somebody needs at that time. And so just being there to listen to certain people, being there to do certain things. Me too. But stepping outside of your comfort in order to help someone who lives with discomfort. But also we're going to leave you with a certain question and this question specifically has helped me through the past days and it probably will continue to resonate with me because I've felt myself become more cynical, become more desensitized to certain situations and other people's situations just because I'm going through all these things that I feel like, oh, since I'm going through all these things, I shouldn't be open to helping other people. So I will leave. So this one question Ian actually brought up last night is because we're saying Jesus is his own team and he is to show love, but our question that we are going to leave you with is, how are you going to show love this week? Or continue to show love throughout your life to people who may need that soup or be outside of your station wagon.
Yeah.
So anyways, thank you guys so much for listening and watching us. We are Spaces. This is Spaces. But thank you guys so much. We'll see you next week.
See ya.
Bye.
Go Liverpool. Up the Reds.
Oh my gosh, whatever.